I don't even know what color that is. That is just wonderful, isn't it? We're just gonna go with it because we don't have time to keep changing things and stuff. Let's just keep rolling. Hi, welcome back, or welcome if you're new here, which you could very well be. I'm Fran, this is Fran Nook in the pages, and today I'm coming at you with my February wrap-up. So I will be talking about all the books that I read or DNF'd in the month of February, because there are some DNFs this time around. Yay! Isn't that exciting? But first things first, I would like to welcome all my new subscribers. Olive from A Book Olive, she very kindly and unexpectedly shouted me out, and I had a surge of subscribers, and I'm very happy about that. I'm grateful. It is a little bit bittersweet because, as we've seen in recent years, YouTube doesn't really care about small content creators, and so I had an initial surge of subscribers, like 200 plus subscribers, and then I lost immediately more than half of them because apparently they weren't legitimate subscribers, whatever that means, and then I gained some new subscribers, and then it happened again. So I can't do anything about that. I hope that the people who were genuinely interested in my content are still here. That's all I can say. I don't really care about the subscribers count. I'm just here to do what I love, and of course the more the merrier, so we can talk more about books. But it just sucks that maybe some people who were interested in my content are not subscribed anymore because they were deemed illegitimate. I don't know according to what criteria, but it just happened. So we have to move on and accept that, and that's what I'll do. Just welcome. I hope you'll enjoy my corner of the internet where I talk about books, and I can't wait to hear and get to know you in the comments. And I also want to apologize if I wasn't very present and active during the month of February. As I had said in a previous video, my mom came to visit, so I tried to spend more time with her, so I didn't have time to film and edit and all that stuff. But I'm here, I'm not going anywhere. It was just like one of those things that happen, and you make the most of it. As always, you can like and share this video. You can click on the bell icon if you want to get notified whenever I upload a new video. You can follow me on social media and befriend me on Goodreads because I am very active on Goodreads. And without further ado, let's just jump right in and see what books I read in the month of February. I have a lot of thoughts. I would begin with the DNFs so they're out of the way and we can move on to better books that I read. DNFs, by the way, stands for Do Not Finish, so these are books that I did not finish for different reasons. The first book I did not finish was Foundryside by, I don't even remember his name, Robert Jackson Bennet. This is the first book in a fantasy trilogy. The main protagonist of this series is Sancha. She is a thief and she is hired to steal something from a harbor pier kind of place, and she steals this thing. Turns out to be a key. After she's stolen this item, she realizes that it's a very ancient and dangerous item and people might be looking for it, and she ends up in some kind of trouble. I was buddy reading this with Isabella at It's Bells. I will leave the link to her channel in the description down below. We'll be buddy reading quite a lot of things from now on because we have a list, and it's a long list, and I love that. But we both didn't like it. We both kind of had the same issues. We were both more than okay with DNFing it, so that might tell you something about the book. Even though if you look on Goodreads, the rating is so high, and I honestly, genuinely do not understand that. Our problem with this book is that the writing was absolute shit. Imagine Brandon Sanderson's writing, which is very standard and easy and flowing and all of that. Take that, it was 1,000 times worse. There were so many repetitions, felt like there was no care for what was written, and the thing that bothered me most of all was the fact that everyone spoke in the same way. If the name of the person who was speaking hadn't been specified every single time after every, you know, exchange during a dialogue, you would have no idea who was saying what, like no idea whatsoever. And that just meant that there was no real characterization of the characters. The fact that a thousands and thousands years old ancient key speaks in the same way an annoyed, I want to be cool boy teenager would speak just tells you everything you need to know about the writing style in this book. Like, there was a point, I swear, I kid you not, the key literally said, yeah, whatever. Yeah, whatever? What? And the whole world building and magic system, it felt like a very early draft of what it could be. And I know we didn't get very far with the story because it was just unreadable. At least to me, it was just such a struggle to plow through that we couldn't. But it really felt like a draft. Like, there were some ideas and some concepts, but they hadn't been properly developed, even though there were info dumps, which seems like a contradiction, but in some way the author managed to do that. The magic system revolved around scribing, and scribing is a magical technology which consists in writing on objects and convincing them of a different reality so that they would perform things that they wouldn't be otherwise able to perform, if it makes any sense. To make it extremely simple, if you write on a piece of wood that it's actually made of stone and not of wood, then that piece of wood becomes more resistant. Like, that's the idea behind scribing. That's what it means. So it was interesting, but we couldn't, and we DNF'd it, and I have no regrets whatsoever about DNFing this book because it was terrible and it was just what it was. I'm sorry. And the other book that I DNF'd, and this shouldn't come as a surprise, is Reputation by Lex Croucher. I was reading it at the end of December, beginning of January. I said I was going to try and keep reading it, even though I was kind of stuck because I wasn't enjoying it as much as I thought I was going to, but I didn't pick it up. I didn't pick it back up at all because it just wasn't calling out to me. I didn't want to continue with the story. I wasn't interested. So I just decided to DNF it. I just decided that it wasn't for me. There was nothing objectively wrong with the book. The writing style was actually very good. It felt like you were reading a Jane Austen-ish novel, but I wasn't really interested in the characters. I wasn't really interested in the story. There were a few scenes with bullying where I was very uncomfortable. There were no queer elements, and I was more than a third in, so it just didn't work for me. I DNF'd it. We can move on. Let's talk about what I read and actually enjoyed. This month I was able to stick to my February TBR a little bit more, which makes me very happy. I didn't get to the physical book that I wanted to read, which is kind of a 2022 goal that I'm failing at, but I'm still on time to, you know, get in the right lane. That's not how you say it. That just sounds weird. Anyways, in the month of February, I read 8 books. 4 of them were audiobooks. I read a collection of short stories, a picture book, 1 fantasy book, which is not the DNF. I read a romance, I read a contemporary novel, I read a non-fiction, and then I read a middle grade. It was a weird month. I kind of like that. And I think that 50% of what I read was LGBT+, which I'm very excited about. The first audiobook that I listened to in the month of February was The Secret Lives of Church Ladies by Deesha Philyaw. Now, this is a collection of short stories that feature main characters who are Black women. Some of them are queer, some of them are not, but they're all in some way, shape, or form connected to the church. I don't have much to say about this one because it is a collection of short stories, so if I start telling you the plot of each short story, then this video would get very long and I don't want to spoil them for you. What I can say is that all these stories were so different from one another, despite the common threads, the main elements that they share. But they were all so well written and unique and absolutely brilliant that honestly I loved all of them. I loved all of them, and I absolutely adored more than half of them. My favorites were Dear Sister and How to Make Love to a Physicist, Snowfall, and Instructions for Married Christian Men. Also Eula I really liked. Like, these were the 5 out of 5 stars short stories in this collection, and I would definitely recommend you listen to the audiobook. It is narrated by Janina Edwards, and she did such an incredible job with each and every one of these stories. She changed her voice, the rhythm, the tone. It perfectly adapted the story that she was narrating, and I just loved it so much. And let me just tell you right away, this was the best book that I read in the month of February, because it just blew me away, and I can't wait to read something else that Deesha Philyaw writes. I hope she comes out with something else soon, because I just loved her writing. I loved her stories. So much creativity. I loved it so much. 5 stars, absolutely recommend. Actually, that was the second audiobook that I listened to. The first one was, the title is long, I'm sorry, Princess Floralinda and the 40 Flight Tower by Tamsyn Muir. This one is a queer retelling of Tangled, where you have a princess in a tower. There are 40 flights, and each flight has a different creature or evil to fight, and this princess is supposed to be there at the 40th floor waiting for a prince to come and save her. At first, some princes are coming, but they can't get past the dragon at the first floor of this tower. So when the princess realizes that no other princes are coming and that she will not be saved by a man in a knight shining armor, then it's up to her to try and save herself. This is more of a novella. I think that the audiobook was like 4 hours, 5 hours long, and it's narrated by Moira Quirk, and she is really a great narrator. I feel like she is one of the reasons why I finished listening to the story, because her performance was just so great to listen to. I don't particularly like fairy tales. It was a nice distraction of what your classical fairy tale would be, so I did appreciate that, and I think that someone who loves fairy tales and that narration style, that rhythm, that person would really enjoy this story. I could see what she was trying to do, and what she was trying to do, she did. What kind of annoyed me was the pacing. Again, I think it's just it's me, it's not you problem, so I can't say much more than that. But if you like that thing, if you like fairy tales and retelling and that kind of stuff, then I think you would enjoy this one. I gave it 3 stars. Then I read SuperCakes by Kat Leyh, and this is a very short collection of short stories in graphic novel format revolving around 2 heroines. You can read it online for free. Like, the whole thing is literally 20 pages maybe. It's very short. I don't have much to say about this. It was cute. These 2 are heroines and they're in a relationship, and in one of the stories in particular, one was going to meet the other one's parents and family and all that stuff, and it was just really cute and sweet. I kind of liked the art style. It's not my preferred one, but it fit the story very well, and yeah, you can read it for free. I will try to leave it linked in the description down below. I think it's on the author's website or something, so you will find it down below. You can just read it in like 15 minutes and have a good time. I give it, again, 3 stars. Then I was kind of reading a few things at the same time, but the next book that I actually finished was Show Us Who You Are by Elle McNicoll. I have a review coming up for this one, so I'll be very short. This is a middle grade book revolving around Cora. She is on the autistic spectrum, and she gets involved with a company who is trying to create holograms of people who have passed away. This company wants to interview her because she's neurodivergent, and they want to have like a faithful portrayal of neurodivergent people for their holograms. Of course, there's more going on than what it meets the eye. At the beginning of the book, Cora also a little bit unwillingly befriends the son of the man who owns this company, who I think is called Pomegranate Technologies, something like that. And their friendship was just so sweet and pure and beautiful and so precious, and I loved it so much. I gave this 5 stars, and again, you will hear more about it in my review, but just so you know, I really loved it. It has flaws, of course. You have the typical, sometimes annoying if not well done, middle grade trope where you have the main character who is just a kid, and in this case specifically, she is also a kid with a disability. And she is the one who has to save the day and fight, metaphorically speaking, against all these grown-ups, adults who would be really intimidated by a kid in the real world. I don't think so, but it's middle grade novel, so we just have to kind of accept that. But anyways, it just spoke to me. It really hit me in my feelings, and it made me so emotional, and I really loved it, and I gave it 5 stars. Then I listened to The Bennet Women by Elle and Appiah-Kubi. This was narrated by, oh gosh, I suck at names, I'm so sorry. This was narrated by, where's my review? For most of these books, by the way, I have a written review on Goodreads, so you can go and check them out. You will find the link in the description down below. But The Bennet Women, so this is about the Bennet house, and this is an all-women dorm at the Longbourn Academy University. So we follow mostly 2 main characters, EJ and Jamie. EJ is a black woman who is studying to become an engineer, and Jamie is a trans woman who is studying theater and French, if I'm not mistaken. This is a retelling of Pride and Prejudice. There is a ball, a social dance at the beginning of the book, and there our 2 female leads meet some guys who they will be entangled with romantically in one way or another. I really loved how the retelling aspect was done. There was a nice spin and modernization of the ideas of Pride and Prejudice. It is a contemporary novel that you can just fly through. The narrator is Elle Morgan-Lee, and she did such a great job. I feel like her voice was EJ's voice, so I was just a teensy bit annoyed when there would be chapters from other characters' perspectives, because in my mind that was EJ's voice. It was just perfect for EJ, so with the other chapters I would feel a little bit just thrown off, just a little bit. I gave it 4 stars, and the reason why I did that was the fact that it is, how can I put it? It is slightly naive, because all the characters in the book, even the ones that we meet that are secondary characters, they're all super woke and accepting, and they're all aware and respectful of LGBT+ themes, feminism. There are just a couple of references to how hard it is for black women and trans women to live in America, in the US particularly. But apart from those very 2 brief instances, the rest of the book is like, it takes place in a bubble where everyone is accepting and super woke. And on one hand, that is totally 100% unbelievable and incorrect, because that would not be the reality. But at the same time, it was just so nice to see everyone so sweet with the main characters, women supporting each other and being together, and male friends being supportive and open with their feelings and all that stuff. Again, it is so unrealistic, but it was just nice to see. It's one of those books that is all about joy, particularly black joy and not trauma, so it is very nice to read, and it feels refreshing and peaceful, and you can just read the whole thing and relax, and you don't have to think about all the bad, shitty things that happen in the world. So I don't know, you just have to find the right time to read it, I guess, because it is not realistic, but it's very nice to read, and I wish things were actually like that, like they are in this book. So that's why I give it 4 stars. It is not perfect, but I really enjoyed it. I would recommend it. I would recommend listening to the audiobook. you take from this what you will. After that, I finished Counter Lucky Stars by Alexandria Bellefleur, and this is the third book in the Written in the Stars companion novel series. This is a sapphic romance. Our main characters are Olivia and Margot. Margot was in the previous two books, I think. She was a secondary character, and Olivia is the new entry. Olivia is a recent divorcee. She divorced her husband 1 year prior to the beginning of the book, and she just moved to the city, Seattle, and she is a wedding planner assistant, whereas Margot has an astrology related company. I don't remember, don't hate me. You can kind of start to understand how I'm feeling about this book by the accuracy of the details that I'm providing after reading it. But that's not an important aspect of the book, so that's also why I don't remember. Margot and Olivia used to be best friends back in high school. They also slept together. They had a week of wonderful, blissful, incredible sex, but then things happened and they lost contact. Now they're meeting again because Margot's friend's brother, he is getting married. Brandon and Annie, they are the main couple in the second book of this series, and of course, who is the wedding planner if not Olivia? Olivia has a problem with her house because it was flooded or something like that, so she of course moves in with Margot, who just happens to have a free available room in her house because her roommate just moved out, and I think her roommate was one of the characters in the first book, Elle. So they're living together, and of course they start hooking up despite what happened in the past. And of course the two women have a totally different recollection of what really went down when they were teenagers. What I have to say is that I really liked the queer representation. Olivia is bisexual, Margot is pansexual. Margot is friends with a sapphic couple, Darcy and Elle. They are the female leads in the first book in the series, which I haven't read, so I don't exactly know how they identify, but they're in a female-female relationship, and I just really loved the representation and the sex. The sex scenes were good. Like, Alexandria Bellefleur knows what she's writing about, you know? They were very well done, and I feel like that's one of the reasons why I finished this book. I really like the banter between Olivia and Margot. I just loved some jokes that were in this book. They were just hilarious. I just started laughing out loud like an idiot, even though I didn't particularly like the writing style, and that's why I don't think I'm going to read the other books in this series. The first one because I'm not interested in Darcy and Elle as a couple. Like, from what I've seen in this book, I'm not really interested in them. And the second one, Brandon and Annie, because first of all, they're an heterosexual couple, and also because they get married in this third book, so I don't feel like I need to know anything else about them. They have their happy ending. I'm good with that. As I was saying, even though I didn't particularly love the writing style, I really loved the chemistry between Olivia and Margot, how they were talking to each other, the sex stuff, the fact that they had an STD talk before having sex. That was very nice to see. Let's normalize that in romance books. But as I've said, I didn't like the writing style. There were so many typos and inconsistencies, but I feel like this is the editor's job and not necessarily the writer. So where was the editor in this book? This book needed editing to be actually good. It wasn't ready to be published, but okay. The third act, Conflict, was a little bit pushed too much, just a teensy bit, and I really struggled with Olivia and Margot in particular, because of how immature she was being and how she was acting, and the fact that the whole problem in their relationship was miscommunication. So they have this thing in romance books that really annoys me, where it is so clearly, utterly obvious that they are both seriously in love with each other, but they're both not denying it because they're not talking, so how could they deny it if there's no talk happening? But they're both acting like they don't want to say anything and they don't want to do anything. And I get that in a real life situation, it is hard to just come out and say how you're feeling to another person that you're starting something with. But in this case, it is just so absolutely obvious that it bothers me because they could have just had that one talk and the whole thing would have been fixed. And Margot in particular was acting like, nah, I don't care, this is something casual, we're just hooking up. And I'm like, just please stop, you know, like you're not a kid anymore, just say what you're thinking and what you're feeling and deal with the consequences, you know. But whatever. And also one other thing, the epilogue, the conclusion was so boring and anticlimactic. Again, editor, where are you? It was just the worst conclusion that I've ever read in a romance novel, like ever. Not even romance novel, like ever. Worst conclusion ever. It was so anticlimactic, it was ridiculous, but okay. You do you. I would have given it 3.5 stars, but again, the sex scenes were nice. It is sapphic, so bonus points for that. We need sapphic happy ever afters, so I gave it 4 stars, but it has some flaws. Just be aware of that before you go in. Then, where were we? The last audiobook that I listened to, and this was very random, but I just wanted to listen to it. It has a very long title. Again, I'm sorry if I'm reading it, but it is Everyone You Hate Is Going to Die, and Other Comforting Thoughts on Family, Friends, Sex, Love, and More Things That Ruin Your Life by Daniel Sloss. Now, for those of you who don't know, Daniel Sloss is a fantastic, incredible comedian. He has 2 specials, I think, either 1 or 2 specials on Netflix, and there's also another one out. I think it was released on HBO or something like that. I might be wrong, but he is just brilliant. I love him to pieces. I gave this book 5 stars. It is kind of non-fiction. It is autobiographical, it is a little bit self-help. He's talking about his life, he's talking about relationships, he's talking about sex, he is talking about America and criticizing the US quite a little bit. So if you can't accept some healthy, more than justified criticism, do not listen to this book. If you cannot deal with swear words, do not listen to this book, because there's like 1 swear word every 5 seconds maybe, apart from a few specific times where he just has sentences full of swearing basically. And I strongly believe to my core that the world should be ruled by comedians, because they have a way of thinking and processing reality in such an interesting way, and they find these absurd but just absolutely brilliant solutions to problems. Like, he has this whole thing where he's saying that not every human being is worthy of having a child, in the sense that not everyone is prepared to have a child, to love them unconditionally, whether they have a disability, whether they are LGBT+. And so he says that since vasectomies are reversible, a solution for that, to ensure that kids are actually wanted and loved by their parents, would be to have all men have a vasectomy when they turn like 12 or 13, so they cannot impregnate women, especially without their consent. And when they want to have children, they have to go to the institution who collected their sperm when they had the vasectomy to either get the sperm or get the vasectomy reversed, and they have to pass the test. And just to ensure that they're going to love the kid and take care of it, you know? That to me is just brilliant. It's one of the many things that leaves me absolutely speechless. I admire him, I love him. He has a very male cis-het perspective on things, and he acknowledges that many times throughout the book, so I'm fine with that. I don't necessarily agree with everything that he's saying, but I admire him. I am astounded at how brilliant and genius he is, at how he makes his jokes. This book is funny as hell, okay? Like, this is not a too serious thing. This book has a 10 minutes long chapter of acknowledgements, and I listened to that chapter and I laughed so much while listening to it. I enjoyed reading the acknowledgements chapter, and I never do that. I never read it because I don't care. But I listened to this one and I loved it, and honestly, I was blown away. I was laughing the whole time. His humor is very dark and gritty, but he always finds a way to have an uplifting, good message at the end of it all, and you can see that in his specials, you can see that in this book. By the way, I think that the way to go with this book is to listen to the audiobook because the delivery is everything. Maybe not everything, but like 90% of it. I don't know if this book would work as an actual physical book. Like, you have to listen to him speak in his wonderful Scottish accent. You have to listen to, you know, the timing of the delivery, and just the way he comes across is it's just incredible. I love him so much. I love his stand-up. Again, you have to be cool with swear words and with sensitive topics that not everyone is comfortable with. You kind of have to leave the politically correct out of the room, but I just loved it. I just love him. I loved it, and I would recommend everyone listen to this because I feel like as people, as we go forward, we are losing the ability to laugh about ourselves, our flaws. We are losing the ability to connect with people who have different ideas from ours, and this is something that he talks about in his book and also in his stand-up, I think. The fact that if we have different ideas, different ideals, particularly when it comes to politics, like, if we don't think the same, then we can't be friends. We can't have a normal, polite conversation because we are polar opposites, and that's not good. Of course, there are limits to the differences, because if someone does not defend human rights, that stay away from me, I don't want to talk to you, but like, there are lesser things that we can disagree on, but we can still have a normal conversation, and we can still accept some criticism when it comes to ourselves or the things that we love, because they're not perfect, and the fact that we love them despite them not being perfect is a proof of true love. And I'm not talking just about people, I'm talking about everything in general. Anyway, I love this book. I gave it 5 stars, of course, and I love Daniel Sloss, and he's an amazing human being, even though he caused more than 300 divorces, more than 100,000 breakups, something like that. He has a count in his book. It's very interesting to listen to. You should listen to it. And the last book that I want to talk about in this video very quickly is a picture book, and it is called Abuelita and Me by Leonarda Carranza, and illustrated by Rafael Mayani. I think that's how you pronounce it. I'm sorry about that. It comes out on April 12th of this year, so it is not out yet, but you should totally keep an eye out for it. This picture book is about a girl and her abuelita. One day they go do some shopping and they experience racism on the bus and in the grocery store. The little girl doesn't understand why, doesn't understand what's happening, but she's really scared, and her abuelita is trying to help her with that and to understand what's happening and to deal with these people and let her understand that she cannot let these people dictate what she can do and what she cannot do and let them affect her life in any way. I absolutely adored this picture book so much. The art was beautiful. I loved the colors, I loved the shapes, I loved everything about it, and the story was so sweet and emotional, and yet at the same time it packs a punch because it really talks about racism in a way that kids can understand it. They can understand what it causes and why it is so wrong and bad without it being too harsh. But at the same time, me as an adult, it made me just so angry at what people who experience racism have to go through for no reason whatsoever. We are at a point in society where racism shouldn't exist, and the fact that it still exists, it's just so unbelievable and terrible, and it hurts so much to see it happen, and it just made me so angry as an adult. Of course, it won't have the same impact on kids, but I think it would be a perfect tool to make them understand what racism is and why it is so wrong. And I loved it so much. I would definitely recommend it. Keep an eye out for it because it was beautiful. So this is it for this video. I talked a lot. I'm so sorry about that. I had to make up for the fact that I wasn't very present during the month of February, and you're welcome. Thank you so much for watching this video. Let me know in the comments if you have read any of these books, if you would like to, if I have made you interested in any of the books I've talked about. Let me know in the comments, and also let me know what books you read in the month of February, what were your favorites, and all that jazz. Just leave a comment because you know that I love talking to you in the comments. Thank you so much for watching this video. I hope you enjoyed it, and I will see you very soon with another one. Until then, have a good one, take care, and keep reading. Warm hugs. Bye!